There's so many benefits to this approach. And it's not hard. It just takes a shift in mindset about how you think about marketing, how you think about all the bro marketing people talking about on the internet. This makes my skin crawl.
When you talk about designing a website from the perspective of the buyer, outside in, as opposed to inside out. Hi, James. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Mark. It's great to be here. I'm looking forward to chatting.
Welcome to Peak Performance Perspective, where we help entrepreneurs master health, wealth, and relationships. Now, as a marketing expert with over years of experience in advertising as well as marketing, what does peak performance mean to you?
I tell you, it's a great question. And this may not be a traditional answer, but it does reflect my perspective and the fundamentals that we as a business practice. For me, peak performance is when you can achieve value creation for your customers and value creation for your business. When those two things are in balance with each other, you have peak performance.
When it comes to value creation, there are levels of value creation, right? A bad service provider might be creating some value versus a good service provider, like for yourself, and many entrepreneurs into it, they're creating a different level of value.
Right.
As someone who wants to achieve peak performance in what they're doing, if we're talking to a marketing expert, if some marketing expert is listening to it, what are some things that has helped you over the past 40 years achieve your personal performance levels at the highest level?
I'll tell you, the key thing, and I know this is going to sound like a blinding flash of the obvious, but people still don't do it. You need to be thinking about your marketing from an outside-in perspective, because otherwise you're just going to be contributing to the digital noise. And you can hire a boutique marketing agency or a designer or whatever, and they will do a good job making your noise pretty, but it's still noise. When you truly understand who your best customer is and you truly understand the process that they go through, the buyer's journey, and you're building your marketing programs in a way that support and amplify the buyer's journey, then it breaks through the noise. Then it creates value, because the goal here, and functionally, practically, the two things are the same. But you don't want to generate a sale. What you want to do is you want to generate a purchase that is the next logical step in your customer's journey. Effectively, it's exactly the same thing. But the mindset shift is really important, because when you have that mindset that you're there to support and create value throughout the buyer's journey, build a relationship, build trust, so that purchase is just, of course, this is what I'm going to do next. Then what you've done is you've captured a customer and you have the potential to have a customer for life. And that, by pushing value into the equation, you're getting value back from the customer, and it becomes a mutually beneficial relationship. I've seen this work so powerfully when companies embrace this. And it really makes a huge difference to the simple reality that every marketer is facing right now, is that you are competing with, 6 to 10,000 marketing messages a day is the numbers I've seen reported. It might be higher than that, it might be lower than that, doesn't really matter. It's a lot. So how
does one go about doing that? How does one go about setting up such a buyer's journey? So it's not just visiting a website, there's a lead magnet, you get a lead magnet, you continue to barrage them with emails, the conventional path.
Well, a lot of times what people do is they have all kinds of individual things going on. When I audit websites, when I audit digital marketing programs, the most common problem I see is an absence of strategy. And that strategy functions as connective tissue. So it's not a whole lot of boxism, right? I need a website. I got my nephew to make me a website. Look, I have a website. Check the box. And then somebody told me I needed to be on TikTok. Look, I'm on TikTok. I'm doing stuff on TikTok. I've got followers. Look at that. But nothing's connected. When things are connected, and they're not only connected with each other so that there's a logical flow back and forth between the website and the media channels and the content and messaging strategy that holds it all together. That connection's important. But also when you understand your avatar, what does your best customer look like? demographically? What are their characteristics? What are they like as people? What is the pain that they're trying to resolve? And what is the gain that they're hoping to achieve? Right? And then what's the process? One of the things I tell clients all the time, the best marketing in the world is not going to change a customer's need state. If they don't need what you're selling, they're not going to see your marketing. It's just going to be part of the noise. That's not a good thing or a bad thing, but it's just a fact. However, when something happens in their life that causes them to become aware, to start to wonder, I think there might be an issue here. I got to figure out how to solve this. Then they're going to see your advertising, especially if your advertising is targeted to that stage of their journey. A common problem I see is that people are like hammering away at folks with aggressive calls to action when they're not ready for it yet. One of my more controversial things that I say that I think amplify this point, I want marketers to stop saying call to action, which causes people to go, what's that crazy lunatic saying, right? I've been told I need a call to action since the first moment I got into business. Okay, but think about it. A call to action is a marketer shouting at a customer and telling them what to do. Customers don't want to be shouted at and they don't want to be told what to do. What I suggest that you think about is your goal here is to create people like you pathways that call out to subsegments in your audience and invite them to follow a pathway. And when they choose that pathway, two very powerful things have happened. They've told you exactly who they are by virtue of the fact that it's a people like you pathway, and they've given you permission to give them more information. How awesome is that?
In theory, I understand this, but how would we play this out in real life? And we can just take any type of coach that is listening to this and just use them as an avatar. Maybe we can give a specific workflow.
Sure.
At a smaller scale.
Yeah, it's a great question. One of our longtime clients is a company that they have a little flour mill, and they do stone ground organic flour comes from farmers in Northern California comes from from farmers in Northern California that use regenerative farming techniques. It doesn't get much more niche than that. But their product is excellent, really high quality. Their marketing is terrible. That it is basically non-existent. That is not what they do. So we took over their marketing last year, and their website was a classic symptom of inside out kind of thinking. It was all about what they do in their mill and that stuff, right? The business owner standing on the rooftop of their building shouting at the world at large about how awesome they are. We redesigned the website and we built 3 pathways on the homepage. One pathway is for beginner bakers, people who are just exploring this and getting started. The other pathway is for artisan bakers, people who are very serious about this. They've been doing it for a long time. It's their passion. And then the third pathway is the store itself. It's an e-commerce situation. And we launched the site early in January. Sales are up over 250% versus a year ago. Time on site is up almost double, because we're inviting people to follow the pathway that's appropriate for where they're at. This works for any business. Most businesses, when they look at their customers, when they look at their business, 80% of their revenue is coming from 20% of their customers. That 20% of their customers, probably there are 2 or 3 subsegments in that group. The other 80, don't worry about them. You want to call out to those key best customers and create a customized experience for them. You want to do that throughout the marketing funnel. And when you do that, you're creating value through the marketing, value for the customers. And that I call it relationship equity, which is the value that's created that goes beyond the functional and transactional benefits of your product. That's truly what creates a brand. That's what creates competitive insulation. That's what will allow you to charge a premium price. There's so many benefits to this approach. And it's not hard. It just takes a shift in mindset about how you think about marketing, how you think about all the bro marketing people talking about on the internet. This makes my skin crawl.
When you talk about designing a website from the perspective of the buyer outside in, as opposed to inside out, if I'm listening to this podcast and I'm thinking maybe I have a problem with that, what are the first couple of steps that I can take, tangible steps that I can take, turn the content around in my website so it's outside in and not inside out?
I tell you, one of my my little shticks that I talk about is 6 ways to engage website visitors in 6 seconds or less, right? And 6 seconds is not very much time. And here's a scary thing. The 6 seconds doesn't start when the page has appeared. The 6 seconds starts when the page is asked for. So if your website is taking 3 or 4 seconds to load, you've just used up the majority of the time that consumer is willing to give you. Page load speed. The next thing that's involved is you want them with you. So page load speed is a trust event. If the site loads like bang, it's, oh, these people are professional. That's a trust event. Next is, am I in the right place? That's about imagery and copy and colors and fonts and all these subtle design things. You want to make sure that you're consistent throughout all of your marketing activity. And you need to understand what the consumer is looking for. If they're looking for Mark, and they arrive at a website and it's got some exotic logo in the upper left-hand corner and a company name that they'd never heard of before, suddenly they're thinking to themselves, am I in the right place? Is this where I want to be? You don't want them thinking about that stuff. You want them to instantly arrive at the website and instantly feel comfortable that they are in the right place. This is what they were looking for. And then their mind will move on. And then the next thing is that hero section. One of my little controversial things is I'll ask a business owner, what's the primary objective of your website? And after back and forth and the litany of things that they want the website to do, they'll usually settle in on conversion. Almost always wrong. Because from the buyer's perspective, the journey that they're on, the primary objective of the website, the first thing that they want the website to do is to confirm that you as a business understand their problem, that you as a business understand what they're looking for.
As a business owner, then what are we doing in that hero section to let customers know of that?
You're focusing in on benefits. You're focusing in on the problem that they're thinking. You're not instantaneously shouting at them about how awesome you are and all of the years you've been in business and all the features and attributes and the things that you don't want something that's generic. We will bring enlightenment to you. Nobody cares. You want something that's tangible. That's really that they can instantly recognize as, yes, that's what I'm looking for. Then you want to give them what I call reasons to believe. And that can be a creds bar where you've got like major logos sitting across the bottom. For example, that flour mill example I was talking about before, they're distributing through Whole Foods. They're selling their flour to Whole Foods. And you put Whole Foods logo on right at the top of the website, immediately below the hero section, that instantly gives credibility to them as a business. Testimonials. How many websites have you seen where there's a carousel of testimonials stuck at the bottom of the homepage that you have to scroll through and the copy is too long and right? That's a waste of digital real estate. You want to have one powerful testimonial that your audience can relate to that will provide that reason to believe, loud and proud, high on the page. Okay. Then make the content another trust event. Make the content easy to consume. Most people are right-handed. In Western culture, people scan from the upper left-hand corner of a page to the lower right-hand corner of the page. So in your hero section, put the image on the left and your copy on the right, and you put the bottom and the bottom below the copy on the right. It's a logical place for people to scan. And yet so many websites I see, the image is on the right, there's copy on the left, and the button is way down at the bottom of that left-hand column where nobody looks. You want to have visual hierarchy so that your headlines and your subheads and your subheads are all a different weight so that people can instantly recognize where they need to look next. What I see many times is the business owner has just regurgitated everything they can think about on the homepage, and it's all equal weight, and there's no white space. Newspapers are printed in columns because small columns are easier to read, and yet I see big, long lines across pages, blocks of copy. None of that is serving you, and none of that is serving your audience. You're not creating value when you do that. So this is how you want to start thinking. Every single website, every single page on your website, you want to be thinking about this. Page load speed. Am I in the right place? Give me a benefit-oriented reason to stay. Why should I believe you? And make the content easy to consume.
You've worked for companies like Apple, Toyota, Wells Fargo. Having worked on such an extensive type of products, what is the biggest lesson you have learned from working with some of these major brands?
It's a great question, and it speaks to something that's important. Obviously, most businesses don't have their kind of numbers in terms of multi-nine-figure budgets and that sort of thing, but they still have to compete with them. So how do you compete with? Distill what you're doing down to principles, because principles are universal. Principles are not a function of budget. One of the most important principles, it's an old direct marketing axiom that is relevant and valid today as it was when whoever came up with it way before my time. And I've been doing this for a long ass time. Get the right message to the right person at the right time. And you'll recognize that all my conversation around avatars and journey maps and benefits and all these things, it's all built on that simple foundation. It's all connected to that simple idea because that idea is a principle. So when you think about things in terms of principles, you've got your budget's not important. It's you'll separate yourself from the others. The dad joke about the two guys in the woods that run across a bear. The one guy says to the other guy, "We better start running." And his friend says to him, "We can't outrun a bear." And the guy says to his friend, "I don't need to outrun the bear. I just need to outrun you." And it's corny as all get out, right? I've never met a dad joke I can't go for. But the reality is, from a small business owner's point of view, you don't have to compete with all this other stuff. You don't have to be 1,000% better than them. You just need to be a little bit better than them consistently. And then the other thing that I think owners lose track of is the importance of their existing customers. You're much more likely to sell additional products and services to existing customers it's much easier, cost less than trying to acquire new customers. So finding that balance between acquisition and retention and understanding the loyalty, and that loyalty is something that's earned. That concept that I was sharing before about relationship equity. How do you bring value to the relationship with your customers that goes beyond the functional and transactional benefits of your product or service? When you actively start thinking about that and you actively start following through on that, some very small investments can have a significant impact on your business, right? With our flour mill folks again, I just this morning signed off on an order of 500. Do you know what dough scrapers are? If you're a serious baker, they're like a flat piece of plastic or metal that you use to scrape up the flour and whatnot that's sitting on the board when you're making bread or whatever it is you're doing. They're serious cooks. They're very handy things I use all the time for lots of different things, right? You're chopping vegetables. You've got a big pile of vegetables. You need to put the vegetables. You grab the dough scraper, picks them all up at once, goes into whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah.
I just ordered 500 dough scrapers that have been monogrammed with our client's logo, and we're going to start getting them. And every box that gets shipped out from the mill is going to have one of these dough scrapers in it. We're not publicizing it. We're not talking about it. We're not doing anything like that. It's going to be a surprise and delight thing that'll go into the boxes and every single time somebody picks up that dough scraper, they'll see the branding and they'll be reminded of their positive experience because it will get incorporated into their day-to-day life. That's bringing value to the relationship that goes beyond the functional and transactional benefits. They have an excellent product, but how do we make it better?
Yeah.
And that's what creates a brand. It's not advertising. It's not marketing. It's when you bring value to the relationship that goes beyond the functional and transactional benefits. And there's so many different ways you can do that.
I want to play devil's advocate for a second, right? Because what you're saying, I understand conceptually, and it sounds really nice to be able to give value to somebody that can sense the functional and the transactional nature of things. But for the average person who's building a website, the call to actions are a way for them to give value. Whether you're building a PDF or you're giving them a free course, the mindset behind is that, hey, I'm going to give some free value, and this free value is going to be so awesome, the person in exchange is going to want to give me their email address, right? So how is this process different than what the traditional approach is still then? How could we make it better?
Yeah, functionally, they're exactly the same things. It's still a button. It's still an action you want them to take. It's still calling out to the audience. It's just doing it in a different way, as opposed to a button that's screaming at you to buy now or sign up. You've got a card that has a headline that said, are you beginning your baking journey? And there's an image of somebody who's like very excited about baking their first loaf of bread or whatever it might be. Then there's a sentence or two that speaks to the what they're going to learn by clicking through to the next page. And then there's a call to action button. There's a button that says, click here to learn more. Functionally, it's exactly the same. But by putting the extra energy into thinking about who your audience is and the kinds of questions that they're trying to answer, you're bringing value into the marketing because you are supporting the journey that they are on. And people recognize that. They understand that. It may not be overt, it may not be in their front of mind, but it is there. And when they land on this page and they're given all this valuable information that's been carefully written and crafted to where they are in their knowledge, as opposed to, I clicked this thing and stuff happened and they sent me stuff and it was like way more complicated than I needed or could understand, or this is subtle stuff, but it really makes a difference. Because if you can get that customer to sign on with you for the right reasons, you're already 3/4 of the way to building a loyal customer relationship. And a loyal customer brings value to a business in 5 different ways. They're so important. And yet,
What are the 5 ways?
5 ways? Okay. The longer they're with you, the larger the return on investment you get from the initial cost of acquisition. The longer they're with you, the easier they are to work with. They understand how your product or services work, so there's less support expense involved. The longer they're with you, the more they understand your value proposition. They understand why you're such a great choice for them. They're much more likely to pay full price. The longer they're with you and they understand your value proposition and they have a relationship with you, they're much more likely to buy additional products and services from you. And then the longer they're with you, the more value they're seeing in the relationship, the much more likely to advocate for you and tell friends and associates and other folks that could benefit from what you're doing all about what an amazing experience they've had working with you and your brand. That's 5 different ways that a loyal customer brings value to a business.
And this goes obviously with the thing that you talked about, which is that it's easier to sign up a customer, continue to service them good, and continue to create a good experience and continue to sell them, as opposed to bring on new leads every single time because of the lead acquisition cost.
But it also circles back, Mark, because this work you're doing with existing customers and this work you're doing with the avatar and the buyer's journey map and the measurement you're putting into your marketing to see what's working and what's not, all of this informs your acquisition marketing, right? Because you know what they're looking for, what's making them happy, so that informs your acquisition marketing. So it circles back on itself. Not only are you maximizing the impact by keeping your customers longer, you're also maximizing the impact of your ongoing acquisition efforts because you know how to talk to people that you want to attract. Another principle that it's important for all business owners to recognize in marketing, it's as important to repel the wrong customers as it is to attract the right customers. And when you understand who the right customers are and you understand the value that they gain from working with you, then you're going to be able to accomplish that. You will be able to attract the right people, and inherent in that, you will be repelling the wrong people.
You mentioned that you have a lot of scars from your career. What's one of the toughest challenges you had to face in marketing, and what did you learn from it?
I tell you, I think that one of the biggest things I learned is to have no fear. When you think about it, it's just marketing. If you make a mistake, not one single puppy will die. And when you make a mistake or something isn't optimal, it's a big opportunity to learn from that and make it better. It's that if you're going at this with this whole mindset around, I'm trying to create value for my customers so that they can create value for me, it's very hard to get it wrong. And your customers will be happy to tell you through their actions when you have gotten it wrong. Another simple thing that many businesses don't do, it's very literally the first thing that we do when we bring on a new client is they're not tracking. They've got all this stuff going on in social media that, like I talked about before, about the importance of the connective tissue. one of the key pieces of connective tissue that is very easy to do and yet isn't done very often is adding UTM codes to all of your links, so that you can actually tell this post on Instagram generated this traffic to my website. And all this money I'm spending on YouTube is not generating any traffic at all. Or the opposite. I mean, we had a client come to us who was where we put the tracking in place, and a few months in, we're like, you need to stop doing the following things. And they're like, but I've been doing it for a long time. Yeah, for a long time you've been doing it and it's not getting you any results. So stop.
You spoke about, sorry.
No, go ahead.
You spoke about your biggest lesson being not to be fearful. And I want to go back to that because a lot of entrepreneurs who are getting started, and when you're getting started, you're just a genius with a thousand hats, right? You're doing everything. You're writing your own copy, you're putting out your own website. There's a fear that we have about putting ourselves out there because the copy we are creating, the messaging that we are creating, we're putting on all Facebook or wherever we're putting to generate leads. When someone doesn't act on that, when someone doesn't click the link, it almost becomes a commentary on their personality and their offering. If you were mentoring a beginner marketer, how would you advise them to not fall for this trap of fear and association of the host's failure to their failure?
I know that's a real thing. And and this may sound counterintuitive. We design and build websites, we do marketing programs for clients, all that stuff. But I'll have a new business will come to me and they'll start talking to me about doing a website. And I'll spend 20 minutes trying to talk them out of it. Before you do a website, sell something to someone. Your list, particularly when you're just getting started, your email list is the most valuable thing that you have. You should be focused on that because that email list will be how you be able to tell your followers about what you're thinking about. Engage with them, bring them into the mix, listen to them, invite them to talk to you, sell something to someone before you start spending a boatload of money, having a website built and all this stuff. It makes me crazy when I see this because you've got this wonderful website you've spent so much money on and then they get this whole resistance about changing it because they spent so much money on it. Rather than doing that, work on building your list, work on building an audience, get people to start signing up for stuff. If you're thinking about doing a course, sell the course first, then build the course.
Sell the course first and then build the course. I love it. You're talking about so many do's and don'ts for not only beginner entrepreneurs and businesses, but also seasoned ones. Is there any other marketing myth that you would like to debunk?
Marketing myths. Okay, one of the things I often tell folks is, and again, this is another principle in a way, but it's funny as well. At least I hope it's funny. Stop trying to boil the ocean. A common problem that marketers fall into is they're told that they need to do all this stuff. They don't need to do all this stuff. They need to do the stuff that's working. So find something that's working and then figure out how to do it better. And then once you've got it like at the absolute optimum that it can be, so it's working really hard for you and for your audience, then start to look for other things and then test those other things compared to that control. And let these other tactics earn their way into your marketing toolbox. Just because your nephew thinks you should be on TikTok is not a reason to be on TikTok, right? Because your wife doesn't like or your husband doesn't like the design of something is not a reason to change it. You want to let your audience tell you what's working and what's not working. And you'll find you start dropping stuff off the table. And not only does the business not fall off, and many times it'll start growing because you're concentrating on the stuff that's actually working and you're working hard to make it better, as opposed to being distracted by all kinds of stuff out there that may work for somebody else and it may have a role in the future, but let it earn its spot.
Tell us a little bit more about your company and the services you offer, and for entrepreneurs who are listening to this, what kind of help they can get from you.
Our ideal customer, and this is a great example of it's as important to repel as it is to attract. Our ideal customer is a high six-figure, low seven-figure business owner who is ready to take his marketing to the next level and has the resources to bring a team on that can actually help him take his marketing, or him or her take their marketing to the next level. Those are our ideal folks. And the process that we go through to start with is a deep dive into who their best customer is, building that avatar and mapping that buyer's journey, because that informs everything else that we're doing for them. The reality is that business owners can be quite successful, sometimes in spite of themselves. And they get to a certain point, and while they're very good at what they do, chances are what they do is not marketing. So you need to bring somebody on who can bring that additional value, who can be strategic, and can say no to you. My God, I have a horrible reputation. I say no to clients all the time. No, I'd love to take your money, but that's a really bad idea. And here are the 3 reasons why it's a bad idea. At least it's a bad idea right now. It may be a good idea in the future, but right now, no, you don't want to do that. And you want a partner who has that confidence and has that willingness to be the marketing expert in your mix. So that's our philosophy. We practice what I preach. Strategy is fundamental if a client's not willing to invest in those strategic things, then they're not right for us.
Where can listeners find you?
One of the best ways to find me is to go to james.com. That'll get you a virtual coffee on my calendar, and we can talk about marketing, we can talk about business, we can talk about food and anything, all kinds of things. That's how I learn. That's how I find out business owners are facing, what they're wrestling with. It's through these conversations. It's very valuable to us, and hopefully I can bring some value to the conversation as well. That's always my goal.
And every time I've spoken to you, James, I have just learned so much from you. So I can't even imagine what a VIP chat with you would feel like. Thank you so much for being on the show. As someone who's been a pioneer in this industry and done so much over so many periods of years for so many companies, you're nothing but a wealth of knowledge. And some of the nuggets that you put on this episode today, I think is going to resonate really well with entrepreneurs who are not only just getting started, but also probably feeling stuck somewhere in the journey. So thank you so much for being on the show. I hope to talk to you soon again.
Mark, it's been my pleasure. Good luck with your programs.
Thank you.